Welcome to On the Verge. This podcast will highlight interviews from entrepreneurs, musicians, and professional golfers. It will center around what tools they have used to help them reach their dreams, how they use golf to further their career, whether it be for escape from the rigors of their profession or to build more business, and how the communitas of wine, music, and golf enrich their lives. This is all about the enjoyment of life, rising above the struggles and stretching past the best to be better every day. On the Verge. On the Verge is presented by Cure, cannabis used for research and education. The medical industry is steadfastly looking to help millions of patients that suffer from injuries related to repetitive motion, sports, trauma, and many other orthopedic injuries, as well as skin disorders, mental disorders, cancer, and osteoporosis, to name only a few of the other underlying conditions that billions suffer from each day. On average in this country, we have 10,000 people turning 65 every day. With the cost of pharmaceutical medicines increasing, patients deserve natural alternatives that are not only more cost-effective, but also safer for them and society. Cure is focused on providing natural alternatives to aid with current or previous medical conditions. Cure does this by providing a therapeutic properties of natural cannabinoid formulations for multiple uses, whether internally or externally. Ask your physical therapist or your primary care physician if cannabinoids are right for you, or check out their website at www.curemich.com. Cure, cannabis used for research and education.
On the Verge is also brought to you by Green Scene. Green Scene is a family-owned company recognized as the Sizzle Award winner for outdoor living in Williamson County. We design and construct areas to blend with the natural landscape of your yard. That can include outdoor spaces, gazebos, fire pits, outdoor kitchens, and yes, putting greens. We understand the importance of your home. That's why we never settle for anything but the best. Green Scene also provides multiple teams with professional landscape maintenance, irrigation, and outdoor lighting.
Welcome to On the Verge. Today's special guest. It's been a while since I've delved into the NFL world, but today we're going to be dealing with Cincinnati Bengals tight end C.J. Uzomah. C.J., how are you today, sir?
Doing great. Doing really well.
I have a couple of interesting pieces that I think a lot of people are interested in. How did you have the confidence to come into the post-college team workouts for the NFL when you were mostly a blocking tight end, but you ended up being one of the top 10 tight ends drafted? But when you aren't blessed with the numbers of receptions and yards and touchdowns, but you still had the inner belief that you could play in the NFL, where did that come from? And was there a big chip on your shoulder to prove people that even though Auburn did not pass the ball as much as other schools did, that you were equipped for the big game?
Yeah. It's sitting on draft day and not really knowing what the future held with my parents, and we were just hanging out, and I started seeing other tight ends get drafted. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know anything about them, and kind of looked them up, and I was like, man, I really feel like I'm better, equal to, if not better than this guy. Why is he getting drafted? And obviously, like you said, it's, the opportunities. You can do what you do with what you're given and the opportunities that are presented with you. And when the Bengals decided to take a chance and draft me, I knew that, they drafted me for a reason, and I knew that I was capable of doing anything that the tight ends that were drafted ahead of me were able to do. And just knowing that and kind of seeing them, being around the teammates that I had at the time, from day one, I was like, I'm more than capable of doing everything that you all are doing, if not more. So, it was just kind of like I looked myself in the mirror, and I knew that, if I'd, gotten an opportunity to get my foot in the door, then I was going to make the most of it, because it's something that I've been doing since I was 7 years old. Yeah. And I have that belief in myself. I have a great support system with my friends and family, and they back me every step of the way. So I don't know. It's something that you just have to look yourself in the mirror and know I'm here for a reason, and if I'm here, I will not squander this opportunity.
Yeah. That's really important because there are so many people that almost limit themselves with their beliefs, maybe because of other people's beliefs.
Right.
And when I saw your story, I'm like, oh man, how impressive is this? That literally 25% of your catches were touchdown passes, but you just didn't have that many opportunities.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, how many times do I deal with people in different other professions that have what it takes, but because their perceived resume doesn't look the part, it makes you fall down the order a little bit. And that would make me, if I was in that situation, it would definitely make me want to prove something. But you don't have to prove anything to anybody but yourself. And I guess that's the ultimate trick, is how to self-motivate yourself in a situation where you know you have the talent, and you just have to let others see it instead of force it down their throat.
Right, and I think, especially, it's easier for me to put this in like a football context, but even now, when I'm looking at other tight ends around the league or some, like, oh, nice, like we're all really good friends, and I'm like, oh wow, so and so had a great game, or so and so had a great year, and they had so many touchdowns, so many catches, so many yards, and I look and I'm like, well, they also had 102 opportunities to catch the ball. They had this many routes they ran and all this other stuff. So you have to again, like you said, you have to assess the opportunities that you were given, what you're doing in practice. Are you showing the coaches that, even though we're running a certain offense, are you showing them that, all right, if we're doing one-on-ones, or if we're in a team setting, or if we're after practice catching passes or doing certain things, that they're like, oh, wow, okay, nice. Now we can throw him the ball, or we can run this play, or we should put so-and-so in this position to make this play because we saw it in practice. Now we have the confidence in them. So it's things like that, too, where I'm like, I understand that, when the opportunity presents itself from the coaches, that I have to make do. But it's also, okay, well, how do I put myself in a position for them to see that? How do I, in practice, make sure that they're, eyes are on me for a certain play that I'm like, oh wow, this would be more suited for me than our small, 5'11" receiver who's shiftier, but in the red zone, like, you can throw me the ball in that situation. So it's things like that too, where it's like you can't dwell on something if you're not given the opportunity. You're like, okay, well, how do I make up for it? How do I do something the next week or the next day or the next play to kind of give not only myself the confidence, but the coaches the confidence in me.
Got it. Everybody wants to know the difference. When I sit down and have the opportunity to talk with people on ESPN, because I've had the opportunity to work with Tim Hasselbeck in the show, and we talk about the difference between the elite college football programs, SEC predominantly. Obviously, there are a couple of Big Tens, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's SEC or bust when it comes to college football. And if we put together, like, obviously the big games, the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn, okay, how much different is the game speed and the players between the biggest game in college football and an everyday game in the NFL?
Yeah, it's it is very different.
Is it really?
It is. I think the physical aspect might not be as different. I think you play against Alabama, probably 18 of them are going in the draft.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, you're playing against unbelievable athletes, but mentally it is an entire, it's just a different story. It's a different beast in of itself. It's like you prepared for an English exam, and all of a sudden it's German that you're looking at on paper, because when you're in college, you're going to class, you're trying to get a degree. You have so much time that the NCAA allows you, and same with the NFL, obviously. But I wake up, and I'm in meetings for majority of the day. We're on the field for 2.5 hours, but I'm there for 13, 14 hours a day just in the building. So 10 of those hours, 12 of those hours is going to just watching film, just trying to figure out what the defense is going to do, just trying to figure out our checks, just trying to figure out if we check or if we do a motion, the defense is going to motion with us, and that could just change their coverage altogether. So it is a complete chess game of knowing and understanding each opponent, each defensive coordinator, each player, because each player plays differently. And in college, you understand certain aspects of that for sure, but not to this degree, not to the degree of, oh wow, this is so much more than I thought it was growing up. It's still obviously it's a kid's game. I've played it since I was 7, but it is a grown man's game in terms of mentally just having to know exactly what's going to happen before it happens.
That's the key, is it not?
Yeah.
It's like I was playing in a golf tournament with former Broncos quarterback Todd Brandstatter.
Right.
And he's like, it's so frustrating to me because I can make better throws. And he played with Peyton Manning, right? So Manning's on the downside of his career. But he says, I could throw the ball farther, faster, and I threw it at it felt like the exact same time. But Manning's ball was always perfectly delivered at the exact time, and mine seemed to be a millisecond late or a millisecond early, and it's the timing of everything. And I just didn't know what I wasn't doing, but it just was so obvious that even though I could throw it better and more with more speed, that I was not able to perceive the exact right time to release the ball, and it made all the difference in the world. And it seemed like a half a second.
Yeah,
and I would make a difference. I would imagine at the NFL level, a half a second's a big deal.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, even it's funny. I mean, kind of my coach. His first thing, he doesn't yell. My position coach does not yell or anything, but the one thing he will ride you on as if you are late off the snap. Once the ball snapped, even if you're not even half a second late off the ball, you're beat. If you're blocking and you're trying to cut off someone, you are immediately beat because the other guy, he's jumping the snap. He knows, he's anticipating. The real advantage that I have is I know the play and I know the snap count. So if I don't use those two things to my advantage and there's a 300-pound guy that's across from me that is beating me across the ball, then I completely screwed up my responsibility, messed up the assignment, and I'm a hindrance to the play.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, it is a game of fraction of seconds when it comes down to it, or fraction of inches when it comes down to the ball placement.
Yeah.
I mean, quarterbacks' mentality it's incredible. They're fortresses in the mind for the most part, and I think that's kind of what makes or breaks a good to great to elite player in the league is just how mentally strong are you, how quick can you make decisions, how quick can you analyze everything that's going on from the time you break the huddle to the time the ball snapped, because by the time the ball snapped, you should know exactly what's going to happen and how to run a route or how to block or how to throw the ball or whatever the case is. And if you don't know, then you're behind the 8 ball and you're probably going to lose the play.
Yeah. It's interesting. What kind of difference did it make this year? I know it seemed like the team got injury bug. I mean, obviously you got injured. Joe Burrow got injured. But what kind of difference did Joe Burrow making it when he got into the huddle compared to the other huddles that you got into in your years in the NFL? Yeah,
he just has a certain moxie to him.
Really?
It is. It's really. It's interesting. We've gotten to spend a lot of time with him now because we rehabbed together, which was awesome. And he's a very introverted person. He keeps to himself. And when he talks, because of that, obviously it commands the attention of the room. And it also holds true in the huddle, though. He's very even keel majority of the game, and then when he wants to flip it on in terms of okay, we need to get our crap together right now, it's all right, nice, it lights a fire under you. But I think the even keel in his voice and his tone and his eyes and his mannerisms is you never feel like you're, even if you're down big, you never feel like, oh man, we're out of this game, because he's calm. And you kind of want that, if you're having a moment of, oh man, I'm kind of, I'm panicking for certain things, and then you come into the huddle after a play, and it's just hey, we're good. This is the next play. Do this, and you're oh wow, nice. You're right. That was one bad play. Put that behind me. Let's go on to the next play, and let's move forward, and let's get this thing going. So he talk about someone who's mentally tough and strong and knows every aspect of the game, and is making adjustments now. And we're having OTAs and minicamp. We just finished up, but we're getting to have these back and forth conversations, which we didn't really get to have last year, really, because of COVID as well. And meetings were completely different, and practices were different, and now having this one-on-one interaction, or him being able to say, hey, I know this is the play and this is the general concept, but you and you run it this way, and it'll just change the entire dynamic of the play. And the coach is like, if that's the way you want to run it that way. And we'll run it in practice. And it just looks like a thing of beauty. And we're like, man, Joe, your second year, you're already changing the playbook, man. This is great. This is what you want to see in your quarterback. Right. So, yeah, he has a different presence about him that I really hadn't seen in any like level of my playing football.
That's awesome. You know, it's been a while since the Bengals had a great championship run. And I was wondering, like, the culture of a team, especially when they've had an extended stretch of non-elite playoff play. Ultimately, though, they all have different players in it. So each year is a new year, and the mindset of a champion can be set at any particular time.
Right.
What are some of the things that the guys are doing right now? Because you guys had a great draft, a couple of great drafts in a row.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot more pieces than you've ever had, at least recently.
Yeah.
You should be feeling pretty good. The Bengals should be feeling pretty good going into the year. But how much does the past impact the present and the future sometimes? Or what's the team doing to forget yesterday and focus on the now? Because this could be a really good year for y'all.
Yeah, to be honest, I think, this year as opposed to other years, I'm like the fifth or sixth oldest person on the team. So the older or the previous years aren't really a culture in the locker room at this particular time. I think I would say a few years ago, maybe even like 2-3 years ago, when we had still 15, 20 of the players from my rookie year, when we had a really good year and ended up losing to Pittsburgh in the first round. I think some of that might have still crept in a little bit, like, man, we still have this person and this person who, it's a culture thing in the locker room where we're like, do we trust this person still, or certain things like that. That definitely comes into play. And anyone who says it doesn't is, either they're not really paying attention and oblivious to the fact, or they're probably just not paying attention. They're just denying it. And to the media, obviously, you kind of, to an extent want to say that, but as a player, you want to trust every single person in the locker room. You want to look at their work ethic and say, okay, nice. Like, this is a person who's getting in early, staying out late. They know all of their assignments. They're asking the right questions, or they're answering the right questions that are being asked to them. And if you see someone who on the team, you're like, man, you still don't know the answer. You've been here for 4 years. You should know that. That's day one from your rookie year.
Yeah.
Then obviously you're one, you want to help that person out and be like, hey, get your crap together. But two, you're like, if the coach is still trusting you and you're still on the field and you make that mistake, we don't trust you as a teammate. I don't trust you to be to my right or left. But I think this year, with the people that we have, the camaraderie that we have, the fight that we have, there's a back and forth between the offense and defense that I hadn't seen in my times of being here. Because usually, the offense is separate; they have their own meetings, whatever. Defense, same. Special teams comes together a little bit, but the back and forth banter of, I'm talking to the defensive end saying, "Hey, don't do that. It's not going to work." He's telling me certain things, and we're just feeding off of each other, making each other better. And that didn't happen.
Nice.
That would never happen 2 years ago, where I'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to try to figure this out on my own, or he's saying the same thing. But that goes each position. Each position is trying to make each person right, left, and across the ball better, because we know if we do that, then we're going to be a better team. So sure. I don't know. We have some guys, some class guys. Like you said, we've got 2 really good draft classes. Within the past 2 years, we had a really good free agency in my mind, with some guys who are, we have a new offensive tackle, Riley Reef, who is commanding the offensive line, which we need. We need a strong presence from an older guy who's like, he's not taking any nonsense from anyone. Anytime someone acts up on either side of the ball, he's immediately jumping at him. Like, yeah, that's what we need. We need someone to put their foot down if we mess up a play. Coaches aren't telling us to run it back. We're telling ourselves, no, we want to run that back real quick, because we need to make sure that we're all on the same page with this, because this is practice. This is OTAs. We're not even in pads. We're not going against anybody right now. Like, we need to make sure we are 100% clear on what we're going to do before we, take that next step of if we want to be great, that's what we need to do. So there's a huge shift that happened a little bit last year, and then a lot this year with the mentality and the culture in our locker room.
That's exciting. It's got to be exciting.
Oh, I mean, I go on the field every day and I have the biggest smile on my face. I'm like, man, this is my family right now, and we're acting like it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So I can see when you tell these stories, you got a little bit of kid in you. Like you just you've taken your game to the professional level, but you realize it's a business. But if you don't play it like a kid, it can start to wear you down. And where in your adolescence obviously your size doesn't hurt, being 6'6", and I saw your numbers. You're not slow either, so you got the total package. But when did you feel like that first light bulb in your head that, hey, I can do something with this? And who were the major impetuses that got you into that place that you could be recognized to be picked up by Auburn University?
Well, I think I was very fortunate to go to a really good high school, and I had two really big-time heavily recruited offensive linemen with me. Austin Shepard, who ended up going to Alabama, and Jawan James, who ended up going to Tennessee. And Jawan's still playing now. He got picked up by the Ravens. But those two, I mean, I was younger than them. I was a year younger, but they would treat me like a little brother, kind of, So they'd kind of pick on me a little bit. Hey, so and so's in the crowd today. What are you gonna do? Like, hey, and they would have this big smile, and I'm like, wait, what? Who's here? Wait, I didn't know this was happening today. And yeah, I think just kind of having. I had a really good group of friends as well growing up, and there's 4 of them, and we still talk every single day. We're in group messages, Instagram group messages. I mean, we talk all the time. One of them currently lives with me. And so the 2 tackles and those 4 friends, I mean, they helped me immensely. And obviously my mom and dad instilled everything in me, a level of respect for people, hard work. My parents are 2 of the hardest working people that I will ever meet in my entire life, especially having to deal with me growing up. I was a talker. I was all over the place. But, that support system that I had and I held on to, they really just elevated me and the confidence I had in myself. They're like, oh, CJ, what are you going to do? We had rivals. It seemed like every week was a rival game, and like, oh, we gotta, that quarterback's talking crap over there. Like, what are you going to do? What, are you going to have a big game or what? You're going to, so, I think having that, I think most of the people that I see that are really successful have that core group of people that they can lean on no matter what. They can tell good things to, they can tell bad things to them, and if the bad things are going to raise them up, hey, no, look, that's a one-time thing. If it happens again, then we're going to actually have a talk right now. And if you tell them good things, you can tell that they're genuinely happy. You can tell you have a friend if you tell them a good thing, and it's not a jealousy thing that they're getting back. It's like, nice, perfect. You did that, but you can do more. I know you can do more. And I think that's kind of what helped me get into Auburn and have the confidence to go about the rest of my high school career, was because I was like, man, I got these guys with me. I know I can trust these guys. I have this confidence in myself. I can do, sky's the limit right now. We need to win state every year. You know what I'm saying? So that definitely helped me, I think, become the person I am today, too, with the confidence in myself, because I still can lean on those guys.
Did you happen to play in the game in which the 109-yard return against Alabama?
I did.
Now, I have to tell you that we're on one boat the same, which is my least favorite team is Alabama. Okay. So what was that moment like? Because I was at the airport flying to West Palm to get ready for LPGAQ school for a girl that I taught played at Vanderbilt. And I'm like, 55-yard field goal. This guy's not going to. Why are they even trying to kick this field goal? And I'm like, I have to watch it. Yeah. And it goes up into the air, and I see this guy catch it right at the goal line. And he starts running. I'm like, wouldn't that be great if he scored? What was that energy like for like 12 seconds? Because it was probably the most insane finish in college football. If it wasn't that, it's the Cal-Stanford game, but I still think this one was bigger because the gravity of the game was so much bigger.
Well, that was the craziest game I've ever been a part of in my life, and it happened. It couldn't have happened to a better team that we were going against either. I mean, that definitely helped. And like you said, the implications of it were huge. But I'm friends with the kicker that we have, and he's like, oh, this kid does have the leg to hit this. Like, I know him. Like, we go to kicking camp together, and I'm like, don't tell me that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's not what I want to hear right now. And yeah, kick goes up. We see Chris catch it and hit the sideline, and I start running down the sideline. But I see some stuff going on as I'm like, all eyes are on him, and I see like other bodies hitting the floor behind me. I'm like, is there a flag? Please tell me there's not a flag. And as I'm running and looking, like, no flag. Oh my gosh, we did not just win this. And I had actually pinched my shoulder, like a muscle in my shoulder. So I'm running, and my left arm isn't moving at all. And so I'm like, oh no. I jump on the dog pile, and I'm like, wait, this does not feel good. Like, this is insane. And it's actually funny, right when I roll off the dog pile, I see Austin Shepard, who was my offensive tackle when I was in high school. I give him a hug. I say, hey, like, we talk for a second. And I look up, and it's just a sea of people. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting back to the locker room anytime soon. Like, this is going to take 20, 25 minutes to get back in there. So this is going to be problematic. But it was just absolute scenes on the field. It was something that you can only dream of as a kid, right? Like, oh man, last second, oh, Hail Mary. Nope, it's a field goal that we return 109 yards to beat Alabama, our arch rivals in the SEC, one of the bigger rivalries in college football, to go to the SEC championship, eventually go to the national championship. And I'm just like, man, this couldn't get any better. I don't think anything could have gotten better in that moment.
That was so great. But the thing was so funny, I have to admit that your first highlight that I watched was you scoring a touchdown against Mississippi State on the last play, and that's where I went to school. So I was like, well, that didn't have to be the first highlight.
Listen, okay, Mississippi. Can we talk about the cowbells there? I mean, what's going on?
What is that? No, when I went to school there, we couldn't take them in.
Really?
So I was there from 92 to 97. So I was at the Jackie Sherrill era. So I get there, and you'd hear like 4 or 5.
Right.
But you couldn't make the students. I mean, every time we walked in, we were checked. No cowbells.
That's crazy.
The cowbells got to be big. Dak Prescott in the Dak Prescott years,
right?
Because the year before we were number 1 for like 6 straight weeks, they had him at the games. I'm like, man, when did we start allowing the cowbells to be at the games? That was never allowed. And then when we were number 1 and we beat Texas A&M, then we beat Auburn, and then we beat. I mean, we just went on a run. Went on a run. LSU was the first game. We beat LSU once every time the Saturn's 7th ring and Jupiter line up. I mean, I think we've beaten them 3 times in the last 38 years, and then we beat Texas A&M, and then we beat Auburn. And I'm like, whoa, we're good,
right?
And I'm just thinking to myself, it's so loud on TV. I can't imagine how loud it is on the field. And you probably played in a game against Mississippi State that was like that.
Yeah, well, it's. I'll say this: the stands, like the students in and of themselves, are very, very loud. So even without the cowbells, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys are louder without the cowbells than if you're not yelling with the cowbells. If you have just the cowbells, I'm not entirely sure if the cicadas were huge in Nashville, but in Cincinnati. I got woken up at like 5 o'clock just because I would hear the cicadas, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds like I'm in Mississippi State right now. This is so frustrating to me. And then you add the fans just screaming with the cowbells, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, when is this gonna stop? Like, please, we either got to jump out on them super early just so that we can try to get them to calm down, or like hope that their arm just wears out because it's a really, really close game. So it was. That's probably one of the more, annoying for me because I'm not used to it, and I was playing against it. But I would imagine. I mean, the players there had to love it, kind of like. Oh,
because I've been to one game. I went to the year that Mississippi State was great was Dak's junior year, because he came back his senior year, and I took my boys to go see their first college football game, and we weren't as good. We lost 2 games when Dak got injured,
right.
So we didn't have a chance to really do anything. And we played, I can't remember who we played, but we beat them pretty good. And I'm like, it sounded like 65,000 nail guns going off. Bang, 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 bang. And I'm just like, This could.
You need some Advil. I'm like, man, I don't know how they're doing this right now. I need Advil. I can't imagine how they're feeling in the stands. I'm sure they probably packed Advil just ready, like halftime. All right, nice. Whew, migraine's gone. Let's keep going.
So outside of, obviously, every SEC school's got massive traditions.
Right.
And I've loved Auburn. Bo Jackson's one of my all-time favorite players. And to get a chance to meet him at the Vinny golf tournament here that was held by Vince Gill was one of the coolest moments of my life. And I love Auburn. But where's the coolest non-Auburn atmosphere that you got a chance to be involved in when you were playing college football?
Oh, that's a good question. I really, it's going to be bad probably, but I actually really do enjoy playing in Alabama.
Is that right?
I love it. I love playing in Brian didn't say it. It's the just sheer hatred that they have for us and just how much they yell and scream, I think is incredible. I would say, I'd want to say LSU, but when we played there, it wasn't close. So they weren't really, as passionate as they probably would have been if it was a lot closer of a game. And didn't matter the score.
Yeah.
When we played Alabama, did not matter. My sophomore year, it was the worst. Probably it was one of the worst years of playing football that I had experienced because we were just, weren't a connected team. There's a bunch of disconnect with other areas, and we go there and it's like 49-0 at halftime, and we're just still hearing it. Like we're going to the locker room. We come back out for the third quarter, and I'm like, "You guys are still here? Go home. Leave us alone." And so we heard it for all 4 quarters, and it doesn't matter. You're going to hear it regardless. So. I love that. I kind of feed off of that. It's fun for me to hear that. So, outside of that, I'd say Texas A&M is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place.
It's really cool. We played them when Johnny Football was there, and he had gotten hurt, and he came back in the fourth quarter and started moving the ball immediately, and we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm listening to this crowd go, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I got chills. I was like, I'm getting chills right now. Right? Defense, you guys better step it up. But this is kind of a cool environment to be a part of. So
that's so cool. What's the difference? Because there's such passion in college football.
Right.
NFL football is a total different fandom than college.
It is.
Which one do you like better, and why?
Well, I'm going to say I love Cincinnati's fans, so I'm going to throw that out there first. But I think it depends, actually. I think it depends on where you play. You play in Minnesota, you get that college vibe.
Is that right?
100%. They're Minnesota strong there for sure. But I think, you're right. The college, you have such strong ties to that college because you're there for 4 years, or you graduate and you're coming back, you're taking your kids. It's kind of like there's family ties essentially to Auburn for me, especially. My dad ended up going back and getting his master's when I was in school. So now we're Auburn through and through. But you go to a place, say you play in Atlanta. Well, Atlanta's a melting pot to so many different people from so many different cities that it's like, oh, nice, we're going to watch the Falcons play. But, we don't really have too many ties to the Falcons. We're just going to cheer for a good game. And, that kind of holds true for other places as well. So yeah, I think, it's you don't hear the sheer just almost hatred towards another team when you play, a New York or a San Fran. You have those fans for sure that are right behind the bench who you're like, oh yeah, this guy, I'm going to hear from this guy for 4 quarters, but it's not the entire stadium, just looking down on, aiming at me if I do something like, oh, CJ, it's just, you'll hear 1 or 2 fans. So I think that's the main difference. And I think that the college experience and the college fandom and the college, atmosphere, makes it that much more appealing to a player and to playing.
Yeah. So we're coming off of an Achilles injury.
Yes.
And you've rehabbed it and you're ready to roll. What are some of the things that you learned through rehab about yourself that's got you ready to take on 2021 football season?
Yeah, I'll toot my own horn with this one. I really did realize, one, that I have great friends. because my friends were checking on me all the time. They were more worried about my injury than I was, for sure. And same, I mean, that goes with my parents. My parents are great. And immediately like, hey, do you want us to come to Cincinnati when you get back home? Like, what do you need? We got you. And actually, my friend Mac was at the house, at my house waiting for me. And he was like, I'm just going to wait up all night. I'm like, dude, I'm getting back at like 4 a.m. I'm like, go to sleep. I'll be fine. And I walk in. He's on the couch, just passed out. I make a sound. And he's like, what's, you good? You need anything? I'm like, I'm good, man. I'm going to go to sleep. So I know that I have a very strong support system with that still. I mean, my 4 high school friends were keeping in touch every day still. And so I knew that. But mentally, it was something I wasn't prepared for because, one, I was like, man, I'm bummed. Like, I'm super upset that I know I was going to have a really good year, or that I would have had a really good year, obviously, and that Joe and I were going to connect. But yeah, I had like a few hours of like, oh man, this kind of sucks because I'm not going to play for the rest of the year. But after that, I was completely fine. Like, after the surgery, I was fine. Like, mentally, I didn't have a bad day of rehab because I was like, well, I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to play the rest of the season. I know it's going to take, they say it's going to take, 6 to however many months. Like, I can kill that. That's not going to be a problem. Yeah. And if rehab is the only thing that I have to do, I'm going to make sure that every day I'm going to absolutely wake up just ready to attack this rehab, because I know that I have to come back next year and do way better than I was going to, like, than I had expected of myself in 2020 because I wasn't able to play. So yeah, I don't know, like, talking to my trainers and stuff, even, they're like, dude, you can take a few days off. Like, we're way ahead of schedule. And my trainer hated when I said, I told people, yeah, I'm ahead of schedule. He's like, don't tell people that. Like, we're going to take a few days off. We're going to rest you. I'm like, no, why? Just keep this going. Like, I feel great. There's no hindrance. I feel no pain. You're not doing anything wrong. Like, let's just keep this going. And I think even seeing Joey B in there, rehabbing a very, like, tough knee surgery that he had, I'm like, I'm going to have to help him out because his injury to me was worse than mine. And I'm like, I'll be in there every day and I'm going to attack this. And I don't know. It was my first, knock on wood real quick, it was my first surgery that I've had, and hopefully only surgery. And I was very surprised with how well I took it, and how, some people kind of fall into a little state of, maybe a little depression, or like, man, I just, having all this anxiety and stuff. And even like day one going back on the field, I was like, I feel great. The doctor said I'm 100%. I know for a fact I'm 100%. There's not going to be any, trepidation in my mind that I can't run and do everything that I'm supposed to be able to do.
Man, that's so huge.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the biggest challenges. I remember I did a podcast with Eddie George, and Eddie was talking about when you're in the NFL, you're going to do everything you can to stay in the lineup, because if you come out, that person right behind you, he's in the NFL too. And I have to stay out there. I got to keep playing. I got to keep working hard. But he later says, I feel like maybe I cost myself 2 to 2.5 years of productive football playing through my turf toe injuries. And of course, that was the culture that the Titans had. McNair and Eddie George and Wycheck and a lot of the defensive stars. Yeah. Man, it was almost a badge of courage to go out there and your arms falling off your shoulder. Like, nothing's going to stop us.
Right.
I mean, Steve McNair played with a crushed sternum and a dislocated shoulder, and ran in for a touchdown with 7 seconds left against the Ravens, and like he could barely breathe when he was laying on the ground. And like, they celebrated that.
Yeah.
And it's obviously the league's changing a little bit with the concussion situation, but at the end of the day, the mentality that you have to have is in that that you just discussed, is essentially you have to have that if you're going to be at the top of anything.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's funny you're talking about the old school guys that, my coach, my first 4 years, his name's Jonathan Hayes. He played for, I want to say 12, 14 years. And he was telling me certain things. He's like, yeah, I ended up having a little stress fracture and something, and we ended up kind of just taping it up for the rest of the game because it was late in the fourth quarter, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting out of this game right now, and I'll figure it out after this game. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. I love it. Like, I love that mentality you guys have. It's a lot. Like, if I fracture something, if I see my leg dangling, I'm probably coming off the field, coach, but don't tape that up. But I think, even having that certain mentality with an injury now, right? Like, I would rather my coach at this day and age say, hey, take it easy, than me. I see there are so many softer players, right? And I think that's another cultural thing that's changed in our locker room that I saw, 3-4 years ago from certain guys where I'm like, you have what? You sprained your wrist and you're not going to practice? No, come on, dude. Just tape it, go back out there, you're fine, So certain things like that, I'm like, mentally, I can tell that you're not strong. Physically, you're one of the more gifted people. Like, there's so many physically gifted people that just mentally they're just like, they're just not in it. Yeah, they're not in it, and they are, I think treating it more like a business than a game that you've played your entire life growing up that you love to play. I love playing football. I love going out there with the guys, and obviously practice the day-to-day, the monotony of it. You don't want to make it monotonous, so you have to have, you find ways to make it fun every day. You bring some energy, and all of a sudden other people are feeding off of it, and then it's not monotonous at that point. It's you guys having fun like you were when you're 7-8 years old, throwing the pigskin around with your dad in the backyard. So, I think that mentality has definitely veered away from that in our culture, but in Cincinnati's locker room at least. But that's something that I think kind of you can't have. You can't have if you're going to be a great player in anything, You can't, businessman. You can't have that soft mentality. I'm not going to get up to work today because I threw up. I don't feel well. Yeah. No, you still got to go. You still got to do your job.
That's right. I was listening to an interesting interview yesterday with somebody that played basketball with Kobe Bryant. And he was asked, Kobe used to get really ridiculed for not passing the ball.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, well, this is easy for me to answer. You see, if I see I'm at practice 2 hours early and I stay after practice 3 hours late, and I see who shows up 7 minutes before practice starts and leaves the minute practice is over, I am not passing that guy the ball,
right?
Because he hasn't put the work in to deserve a pass from a guy who's working 5 times harder than he is.
Right.
I'll take my chances for this team than to pass the ball to somebody that's not prepared.
100%. Yeah.
And I was like, man, now that's a Michael Jordan-esque type answer.
Yeah.
And it's that weird line that the elite players have of. Some people find them that they push too hard, but Michael Jordan said it best. I've never asked anybody to practice or do anything in practice that I'm not doing myself. And if you're not willing to put the work in, I'm trying to win a championship. And if you're not on the bus, I'm getting you off the bus.
Right.
And I can just by listening to you tell me, that sounds like what's beginning to occur for the Bengals. And that's so exciting for me. Just getting to know you is like, wow, how cool is it to now, I guess it's probably year 6 for you in the league? Or
7.
7 coming up. That you're going to get, like, you're starting to feel like now we got something. It's more intangible now. There's more than just talent.
Right.
There's a glue, there's a network, there's a family vibe that everybody's holding everybody else accountable.
Yeah, and I'll say this, we for these OTAs, we would go out at 12:30 is when we started, and we started special teams at we started our walkthrough at 12:30, and day one was a little interesting because we had a bunch of Zoom stuff, and so we didn't really have to be there until 12:30, and 12:30 is when it started, and so I'm pulling up. I have. I get a nice little front spot because I'm an old guy now, and I'm like, God, this is perfect. And I'm looking, I'm like, wow, there's a lot more cars here than there usually are. And I'm early. I'm like, there's a lot of cars here. I walk in, every rookie's there, every second-year player's there, every older guy is there, and I'm like, okay, nice. This is nice. I get out. I always go out 30 minutes early and I went out a little bit earlier because of my Achilles, so I could warm it up. And I'm ready for practice, and it's 11:55, and I'm like, all right, nice. I'm ready to go out, and I see Riley. This is another reason why I have so much respect for him, because he's I think he's 31, 32, and he's the command that he has. This is day one, and we're walking out there, and the offensive linemen see him walk out, and they immediately jump up. All right, hurry up, we're hurrying up, and every single one of them is out at 12. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. All right, this is kind of unusual. I think the entire team was out at 12:10. 20 minutes before we had to be out there talking to the coaches, going over things, going over assignments, going over footwork, just getting their bodies ready. I'm like, well, all right, well, this is day one though, all right? So let's see how this goes at the end. The last day, we're in the stadium, so we don't have to go anywhere. It's literally 20 steps, and you're in the stadium. Same thing. I think it was a little early because we were kind of hyped because we're like, oh, it's mini camp, like, let's go. And the very last day, 12:05, everyone was out of the locker room, just ready, like just amped up, talking to each other, warming up. I'm like, again, a few years ago, 12:29, people still walking out there. And those are the guys where you're in your head, you're like, I know you're not, you're going to get out here right now. You're going to be the first one gone. You might not even shower after we're done. You might just get in your car immediately and go home. And those are the kind of guys you don't want to be around. And this team, I'm like, man, I love seeing the commitment that we have to get better with each other, so that we don't have a year that we've had in the past. Yeah.
Well, you're the first NFL player that I've had a chance to interview since COVID hit. When it was going on at the very beginning, and obviously there was some delays, what have you, did you feel at the time that you wanted to play, or did you feel like with the information that you had, you didn't want to play?
I still wanted to play.
Yeah. How would you feel like the team was? What do you think it was? 50-50, 60-40?
I'll say this. I think any of the conversations that we had as a whole with the league, it wasn't about whether or not we wanted to play. It was about how we were going to go about the travel, the day-to-day, hey, can we go out to eat with our family? Like, what happens with our family type things. We all wanted to get on the field and play. We also wanted to know about meetings and how we were going to go about that, because now we kind of understand Zoom meetings are very fluid, and we kind of, everyone's had to do it. Everyone's kind of, adjusted and figured out how to do it in a productive way. But we want to know about the rookies. How are we going to, kind of integrate them? We had a rookie quarterback, and I'm like, well, this man, can we do stuff on the field beforehand? Like, you guys are limiting everything that we're doing. How are we going to be able to build this chemistry with a rookie quarterback, as opposed to a rookie running back, where it's like, well, you give him the ball, he can figure something out on his own. Yeah. But I was excited just to get out of the house and go do something. I'm like, I want to go play, and all these gyms are closed, which is super tough. I can't really, I'm frantically trying to buy things online. I'm like, well, this is back ordered for 2 years now. Like, I can't get anything anymore. But I think we were all pretty excited to be able to go out and bring about some sense of normalcy to the world where, nothing was going on. And we're like, well, if we're the only sport on, great for us, and we got to make sure we're ready. So, like, what can we do in FLPA to ensure that happens?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. One last question I want to have on, the athletic year is, like, recently LeBron became very critical of the NBA for how quickly they came back after, like, they extended the COVID situation, and he's like, good. Look at all these great players injured and out. It's the greed that y'all are putting out there that has cost us, Kyrie and Harden and myself and AD. We're falling apart at the seams for what? Is this what you wanted? All of your best players injured in the NBA playoffs? It's interesting, like, the best players are starting to get more and more of a voice in the news and how they can impact the league. Do you feel like that's a good thing, that the athletes are getting involved and demanding a different level of responsibility from the league and the ownerships? Or do you feel like that's not their role? Because I thought that was, LeBron's starting to get pretty polarizing. I love LeBron, but like he's starting to almost split it right down the middle between the lovers and the haters.
Right.
What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I think it's very mixed. I think, I think having a voice is a good thing, obviously, in any aspect. I'm like, wow, I can tweet something out and people care about it. Like, that's interesting. My friend Mac over here, if he tweets something, I don't know if there's too many eyes that are going to be on the tweet. No offense, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a time and place for certain things, right? Like, I don't think that calling out the NBA on Twitter or on social media is in the best interest of not only just the sport itself, but like you as a person. And who am I to tell LeBron what to and what not to do?
Sure.
But something like that, it's like, we have a PA for that. We have, I'm sure they have their same thing. They have a panel of players that they can come together and say, hey, next year, let's do this. Or in spite of what's going on, like, we need to be able to do this. And that's why LeBron can say anything and someone's going to listen.
Yeah.
You don't have to tweet it out for the world to see or say it's for the world to be able to hear for your point to be made. And heck, he could go up to Adam Silver and say something and someone's going to know and they're going to tweet it out. Right? Like they can tweet it out for you so that it's like, okay, nice. Like he's handling his business in silence and he has a problem and a lot of players are thinking the same thing he's thinking. And they're making it known, but not like broadcasting it, because kind of in certain situations it's like, okay, well, are you saying this now because your team's out, or would you still say this if you were playing for the championship right now, or would you still would you wait? So that's, like you said, it's polarizing because it's like, okay, well, we were like, if certain people who now are on the opposite side of loving or hating LeBron, it's like, okay, I respect you as an athlete, but like you're out of the playoffs. You're not competing for a chance to win. Is that why? Are you just whining or what? Like what's the deal? And that's what's going to go off in their mind.
Yeah.
Now, someone of his level, he's like, I don't care, whatever. But when I think about it as an athlete, I'm like, well, no, you kind of want that backing still. You want the person who's on the opposite side of liking you now to still agree with what you're saying, not think, oh man, he's whining because he's out of the playoffs and this person's hurt, like whatever, you got to suck it up type thing. No, you want to do it in such a way that it's like, wow, the person who might not have liked him is like, oh wow, I agree with him. Like I want to see him still play, even though I'm not his biggest fan. So yeah. I think there's a way to go about it where you're not putting all the spotlight on you as opposed to the situation that you're trying to get out.
Yeah. What's a scarier situation for you, lining up against the most feared outside linebacker in the league, or 7-iron from 158 over a tree to a back right pin with water in front? Which one's got you a little bit more concerned?
I'll tell you what. You tell me hit a golf ball and there's some water right there. I'm like, uh-oh. What's on the opposite side of the water? I might have to club down just to make sure I don't hit that one right there.
So what's your relationship with golf?
So I love the sport. I respect it a lot. And that and tennis were the two things that I respect. Personally, two things sport-wise that I respect more than any other sport. And I think, it's because, one, I want to be really good at them, but I'm not. And I know that it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of practice. And two, it's because that's not a team sport. It's just you. All eyes are on you. When I'm golfing and I'm golfing with friends and I hit a good shot, I'm like, oh, nice. All right, cool. I hit a bad shot. I'm like, oh, it's just three of my friends right here.
Yeah.
When I'm seeing Bryson DeChambeau out there and he's hacking away kind of, and I'm like, oh, nice, I just hit that shot. But there weren't millions of people watching me do this right now. Heck, when I'm teeing off on the first tee and someone's watching me, like making sure that our group is going when they're supposed to go, I'm like, gosh, this guy's gonna watch me tee off. Man, don't swing too hard. Like, don't shank this. It's gonna be a long day if you do. And so I love golf for that aspect. And I started. I know again, I'm talking about him a lot right now, but Mac is a really good golfer, and he played a lot in college, and I kind of dismissed it because I was like, well, I'm trying to go to school, I'm trying to, I got to watch film, I got to go talk to the coach, whatever, and I get into the league, and I'm like, well, everyone's playing golf. Like, oh my gosh, you guys have custom clubs? Then like, CJ, you're gonna have to get some custom clubs, man. You're too tall to be hitting these normal clubs. So I ended up having a friend who went to Georgia. Actually, he gifted me his set, and he was like, these are extended. You might need a little more, but play with these, hit with these. And so I would go out and hit with one of my teammates, and I'm like, man, this is tough. But you hit that one shot, pure.
It only takes one.
Let's come back out tomorrow. Like, let's do this again. Let's go out and have fun with the boys.
Well, it's funny because football is a reactive sport.
Right.
You're reacting to the people that are guarding you. You're reacting to you knowing the play. You're reacting to the reads that you have as you're going downfield. Golf, you got to create everything. It's responsive,
right,
not reactive. So it's counterintuitive in some ways, in which within reason, the easier you move, the faster the club travels.
Right.
But in football, the more intention you have, the harder you're doing it.
Right.
And it's so counterintuitive to a football player that picks up golf because they're more apt to be like, I'm just not trying hard enough.
Right.
Come on. Like they get the huddle mentality versus the golf mentality, which is ease off a little bit.
Smooth and easy.
It's not easy.
No, not even a little bit. And even golfing, we golfed yesterday, and it's my first time playing with a teammate. He was not very good, I'll tell you that. And he was like, yeah, you know what rule number 1 is, right? And I just completely shanked a drive. So you know what rule number 1 is? I was like, what's rule number 1? He's like, hit it as hard as you can, man. What was that? I was like, all right, cool. All right, well, I played with him one time, and I didn't play with him again. I was like, this was the worst. This was terrible. But it was that one shot that I was like, oh, maybe we can go back. But, it's just, just certain things, right? Like talking to Mac again, he's like, well, you're athletic enough to be able to hit the ball. Even with your swing, you can make contact with the ball with the club. That's not going to be a problem. It's just not going to go anywhere near where you want to go unless you fix certain things, unless you stop swinging for the fence every single time and just relax. Make it smooth. It's smooth and easy. And having that mentality and thinking that way before every shot and then hitting it smooth, hitting it pure, and hitting a 4-iron like 200, whatever many yards, and people are just like, wow, what the heck? Where did that come from? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. What's up? Give me the driver again. Let me try this again. Let me tee it up again.
It's so hard to hit that 4-iron 230 with that nice smooth swing and say, let's just do that again. Instead, the brain goes, man, imagine how far I could hit it if I really let it go.
Exactly. So listen. So I hit. People, we're playing yesterday, and we're playing with Matt Wallace's father for Father's Day, and he hits a drive, and I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's a par 4. I can hit my 4-iron, and then I'll be able to hit like maybe an 8 to the green, and I smack the 4, and I'm like, I'm just gonna nice and easy go past his dad's drive, and I was like, wow, all right. So the next hole, they're like, just hit the 4 again because it's kind of a similar situation. It was a great hole. I'm like, perfect. And I just swing for the fences. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I was like, why did I do that? This was the worst idea. Why is that the first thing that comes to mind every time you hit a pure shot the shot before? So yeah, it's golf. Really, talk about mentally. Just you have to be so mentally strong to play golf, because that's the one thing where, like I alluded to, it's not a team sport. It is you. If you hit a bad shot, there's not your teammate there to help you out and like hopefully pick up the pieces for you. It is, well, now I'm in the bunker. What can I do from here? And you have to immediately forget about that shot, because if you don't and you carry it over, you're tripling in at the back nine when you're in contention to potentially win. So that's something that's fascinating for me. Is I love that mental aspect, that it's a chess game with yourself in the course.
Yeah. So I always get excited to get a chance to work with you guys, because almost always you have all of the athletic ability, but you don't have the understanding of the motion. So that when you get taught the biomechanics of what has to occur to make the golf swing travel in a circle correctly, it's usually pretty eye-opening. And I usually see like amazing change, because what golf looks like and what golf is like as far apart as it can possibly be at the very beginning. Right. Especially given athleticism. Like, give me that stinking thing. And you're like, whoa, what is going on here?
Right.
Because everybody thinks we're trying to hit a straight shot. So that means the golf club should be trying to travel down the straight line. But the golf swing travels in a circle.
Right.
The body moves in a circle. So everything is moving in a circle or a curve except the ball, which is trying to go straight.
Right.
No, wrap your head around that once.
Yeah.
You can't. It's why I call it job security. Yeah. It's a really hard game that makes no sense until you understand it. And then once you understand it, that's when you fall in love with it. And then the learning piece of it and the nuances that inch you closer to the shots you see on TV. That's the addiction. That's the cool stuff.
Yeah. No,
so you just got to get to that. Got to get to that point.
Yeah. I take any tips you got for me, because I understand enough, and hit, a little bit here and there that kind of, I'm like, oh wow, okay, I'm starting to somewhat understand, right? And the somewhat understand is, okay, nice, all right. If I do certain things this way, then I'm gonna hit a good shot. I'm gonna hit a clean shot at least. It's not. I'm not putting it 2 feet within the pin, but I'm getting it, on the green. I'm not hitting bunkers every time. I'm not losing 20 balls now per round, which I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that's a win. Like, that's a win. Wow, I'm not losing. I lost 5 this time, guys. Well, there it is. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is truly. It's an addictive sport. Oh, it really is.
No doubt about it. Job security is real for me. I am safe. I am safe. Yeah. Well, the favorite part of the podcast, at least as it pertains to the feedback that I get from the show, is the part on perseverance. And what I mean by that is, what has happened in your life, that one thing that was like a sledgehammer to the forehead, that you weren't quite prepared for, and you weren't quite sure that you're going to make it through, but when you did make it through it, it steeled your resolve that you know that you could pretty much handle anything. What was that one moment at any particular part of your life that was really scary, that you persevered through it, that gave you the confidence to take on all challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to not go through too many crazy things in my life, but I think I would say 2 things really. One was deciding to play tight end and not quarterback. I played quarterback since I was 7.
Yeah.
And my parents really pushed the quarterback, me playing quarterback. And I ended up just breaking down to them, like, guys, I'm not good enough. I cannot. Like, I know my limitations as a player, and I know I'm watching Tom Brady right now. Like, I'm not that, and I don't think I will be, and that's fine with me. But it was a whole thing, I broke down, ended up driving. I was like, I need to leave for a little bit. Like, I just need to drive around for an hour, and we had the talk for a week until I committed, because I knew I wanted to go to Auburn, and Auburn at that time was like, hey, you're not going to play quarterback, and I was like, cool. And it was the greatest decision I think I've ever made in my entire life to this day. Mm-hmm. And without knowing how to play tight end. And then even going there, I did not play tight end really. It wasn't a true tight end position. So that transition in of itself to the NFL was a different monster that I had to try to face. And so, I think being able to play a different position at an SEC school, especially a school like Auburn, do as well as I did, I was like, wow, well, if I can do this, then surely I can make it in the NFL, and I'll be fine. And And then another one was the death of one of our teammates, a player that I played with, Philip Lutzenkirchen. He's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Auburn, because we played against his school, Lassiter. And when we played Lassiter, I scored 3 touchdowns. It was my sophomore year, and I had moved to receiver because our receiver had gotten hurt the week before. And I remember him specifically because, I mean, he was great in the state. You know, he hurdled one of our DBs, and I was like, oh my God, let's just hurdle Rob. Like, that was insane. And so the whole connection with him and his family, and you know, with recruitment, he had to host me because Coach made him, and I was like, remember when we beat you and I had 3 touchdowns against you guys, and it was like 29-21 or 49-21. So we had a nice relationship off rip, and great guy, helped me transition from quarterback to playing, you know, the tight end position that we had at Auburn. And I owe him as much as I owe anybody, especially at Auburn, for that transition, because I was in quarterback mode. Like, I was soft. Like, I wasn't physically ready for that. And he really helped me out a lot. And his family is one of the greater, like, nicest families that I've had the chances of meeting. And, you know, when he passed away, I was like, man, this is tough. You know, and I had 2 friends who told me, you know, it happened, and I got woken up by them, and we just sat and talked. And again, that helped. That support system that I'm talking about, it really shows. And being able to have them and deal with that with them, and go through that with them, and go to the funeral, and everything that came about with it, I had my closest friends with me the entire time, helping me out, and you know, having his family there too, obviously, and them picking me up. I was like, man, if you guys are here for me, like, through something like as dark as this, I know no matter what, like, I'm good. Like, I've got you guys to lean on. So
that's super important right there.
Yeah.
Not many people have that many people to lean on right now.
Right.
That's an important thing for people to be in search of.
Right.
Connection.
Yeah.
And the ability to have somebody to share life with.
Yeah,
you can't. Difficulty.
You can't do it. You can't do it by yourself. And if you try to, you're gonna lead yourself down a road that's going to be super dark for you. So it's amazing to have people that are like-mindedness and where they want to go, and that just support and care for you as much as they do.
Yeah, no question. The second half of the show is about the things that you do to recharge your batteries. We talked about a lot of things that definitely take a lot of energy, but we got to do things to recharge. And historically speaking, they're the things that bring a lot of people of like-mindedness together to share in a moment, which is why concerts, plays, football games, baseball games, etc., they're so popular in the world, is because it brings a lot of like-mindedness together.
Right.
When you were growing up, favorite band, favorite musical act, what did you listen to when you were a kid?
Growing up, man, that's it is going to sound really bad, but growing up, I listened to a lot of Disney type things, right? Like, I listened to High School Musical. I listened to like all these musicals that were coming out on Disney before I even knew what Broadway was. I didn't travel outside of really Georgia like that, and I wasn't able to go to New York, and, you know, culturally, my parents didn't really know about that either. Yeah. So, being able to, like, hear certain people sing and act and do, again, things that I'm not good at. I was like, wow, I admire the heck out of this person for that. That's incredible. That's awesome. So I really honestly listened to a lot of that. And then I listened to Lil Wayne a lot.
Nice.
Because I went to one of my receivers was from Louisiana, and he was like, oh, you got to listen to Lil Wayne. And I was like, cool. All right. Why not? You're cool. Whatever. And so I listened to Lil Wayne and High School Musical types. Yeah. It was such a weird dynamic in my little iPod shuffle. I'm shuffling songs, and people are like, what in the world are you listening to right now? It's my favorite thing to listen to. So yeah, those are the things when I was
Actually, I saw that you were from Atlanta, so I'm wondering if you were like into Ludacris or Jeezy or anything like that. So
I did. I mean, obviously I listened to like T.I. and Jeezy. I listened to everybody, but Lil Wayne for sure was someone who I listened to probably the most, especially at a younger age. And I still listen to Lil Wayne a lot, but that was, I mean, going to little basketball games growing up, going to any football game. I got to listen to Lil Wayne right now, Mom.
I love it.
Yeah.
Favorite sports team? It doesn't make a difference, football or whatever.
Chelsea Football Club.
Chelsea Football Club. That's the third one of those. I love that.
Oh, my God. I'm a diehard. I am the biggest Chelsea fan that you'll probably ever meet, to be honest. I was actually supposed to go to the Champions League final this year in Porto, but they had a North American travel ban. So you had to be an essential worker, and I don't know if I can figure that one out in such a short notice. But I had the ticket, I was ready, and there was a ban, and I couldn't go. So, but oh yeah, through and through.
Favorite player
right now or ever?
Ever.
Ever is Drogba and Frank Lampard. I was super upset. I'm not upset, but I was disappointed with the fact that it kind of didn't work out with him as a manager. But currently, I mean, I'm going to go Mason Mount and N'Golo Kante. N'Golo Kante is the best player in the world right now to me. And Mason Mount, I love the fact that he grew up under, in Chelsea and he's doing as well as he is. That's another thing for me that I'm like, man, if you've grown up playing for a team your entire life and you're able to play at the highest level for their team and then playing in the Champions League and winning, I mean, that to me that's the dream. So that's awesome.
That's so cool. So I was always like, because I'm married to a Brazilian, right?
Okay.
So we got Ronaldinho, we got Ronaldo, we got Neymar.
Yeah.
I can't watch Neymar. It's like, and the Oscar for most
egregious, crazy
fail at an attempt to pretend to be hurt goes to Neymar.
Yeah, Neymar. It's I love soccer. That's probably it's my favorite sport to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to watch someone of his. I mean, he's so talented.
So talented.
But then it's kind of like you're trying to play the game. It's a mental thing again, right? It's like, come on, dude. You watching him grow up and back in the Barcelona days, I'm like, you should be better than Messi right now. To be honest, you should be better than Ronaldo. It should be you at the top. And it's not because of just the antics. And it's tough to see someone with that talent kind of play the game that way.
I'm with you on that all the way.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Man, that's a tough one, actually. I love The Italian Job.
Nice.
I watched it in college all the time. And I would go to sleep with it on. Like I was heavy dedicated to The Italian Job. But I Pursuit of Happiness is really good.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that movie in a while.
Yeah, I love that movie as well. But I don't know, The Italian Job for me, that's like it's something I watched when I was a little kid that I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like I wanted a little Mini Coupe. I was like, man, it was that and a Mazda Miata, and I told my parents, and they're like, "You're not gonna ever fit in that car. Like, you might as well just scratch that right now." But I would watch that movie and just be like, "Oh, I'm in awe right now."
So cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It gets me like movies. Like when you have kids, you all of a sudden don't watch a lot of movies that aren't like Pixar.
Yeah.
Some people ask me all the time, "Hey man, did you see this movie?" I'm like, "Never heard of it. Never heard of it." But I mean, I used to watch movies all the time. Like I'm saying, like I'm stuck in this time warp. People say, "What's your favorite movie?" I'm like, "Well, it's either a toss up between Gladiator or Forrest Gump."
Oh yeah.
And like, and they're great movies, but like, how about in the last 10 years? I'm like, planes.
See, I'm trying to think when it's on spot and you think about a movie, I'm like, I don't know exactly like what movie I've even watched within the past, like that I can just name off rip right now. But I mean, if we're being honest though, does a musical count if it's in movie form? Hamilton.
I have not seen it, but I've been heavily interested in going when it comes here to Nashville.
You should watch it. It is one of the more just incredible things to be able to witness. I mean, people just do that. I'm just like, what in the world? It was 2.5 hours. I ended up going to see it on Broadway before COVID. I mean, two and a half years ago. And it was 2.5 hours of my mouth just open, just like, what in the world is going on? And people just cheering. And it was, that was breathtaking for sure.
That is so cool. I've only seen 2 Broadways, but I think that's something I probably want to see that more than Cats and what's the one with the mask? Oh my God, I can't believe I think
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, those are the two.
I think Hamilton, I think, is probably in a league of its own in terms of musicals and Broadway shows. I think we watched the Newsies recently, and the Newsies is amazing, and there's so many different just great plays that you're like, oh wow, like Staples, Lion King, certain things like that. But Hamilton, it honestly is the way everything's written and the way the actors and the musicians are. I mean, it is truly mind-boggling how that happened.
Final question. Most people, including the great leaders in the world, say we largely become a hefty percentage of the 5 most impactful people in our lives. Who are the 5 people that have impacted your life the most right now that have put you in the position that you're in right now?
Oh, well, obviously my parents, for sure. That goes without question. My mom, when I was at a young age, she had me young, and she figured out a way to go to college, be the first person to graduate in her family, and raise me to be the person that I am today. And I don't know how she did it. She is the backbone of the family as a whole, between her brothers and sisters and everything. So definitely her. And then my dad, hearing his story recently, when my grandmother passed away, he ended up telling me about his life, kind of, because I didn't really know too much about it, to be honest. And he ended up, he kind of told me about his path from living in the States until he was 7 to living in Nigeria until he was 19, and found his way, like had to find a way to have money and get money to move back to the States. And hearing that whole thing, I'm like, Dad, wow, you're crazy. Like that's a lot.
Wow.
It was a lot of hard work for him. And, things like, I mean, that's just the hard work I was able to watch them, growing up. And I mean, it was incredible. So definitely those 2 people. I will say I'll probably end up with my 3 best friends, or 3 friends that mean the most to me, I think. And the first one's Mac, who I've mentioned a few times on this, but Mac's he knows everything. He is my brother. I'm in his family group chat. Like, I'm probably closer to their family than I am to my mom and dad in terms of just them knowing everything about me. Yeah. Like everything that happens, all the tweet. I mean, they're heavy on social media, so his youngest brother is always on Twitter and all this other stuff, putting stuff in the group chat, and they're hyping me up always. And that means the world to me, because my parents, hearing stuff from your parents is one thing. It's like, oh yeah, congratulations, CJ. Well, thanks, mom and dad. But hearing it from your brother and their family, it's like, oh, nice, like that means a lot. So definitely, I mean, he's a rock for me. Ben Duran is a huge part of my life. And I'll say it's because of, one, he's the nicest person that I say this till the day that I die. Nicest person I'll ever meet. Nicest person that when I introduce him to my friends, they're like, Ben's the nicest person I've ever met. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. I'm well aware. But he's also one of the hardest working people that I think I've had the pleasure of meeting. I think, outside of my parents, off the top of my head, I don't know if I know a person who works harder than him. Just because, he's jumped from job to job to job to job, trying to find something he loves. And every time he jumps from one job to the next, I'm like, well, why are you leaving that job? Like, what happened? He's like, I'm working harder than everyone there. I don't think that there's anything that it's not going to benefit me being there. And I'm like, wow, so you're just going to like start from the bottom? And he's like, yeah, why not? I want to be with people who are going to work as hard as I am, because if not, like, what am I doing there? And hearing him say that, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I love that. I admire the heck out of that. So Ben Duran is definitely, he's someone that has helped. Again, that's another thing for me. I'm like, wow, that work ethic, that I want to be with people who are working at least as hard as I am. I mean, that's something I admire. And the 5th person, it's going to be a toss-up here between Shannon and Tate.
We'll give him 5A, 5B.
All right, cool. We'll do 5A, 5B. Shannon is my best friend since I was 7. I've known him for the longest time, out of anybody in my life, friend-wise. And he's someone who, he keeps me accountable. You know, I hold myself in high regard, but you know, every person slips up or does something, and Shannon's the one person every time who's like, "Hey, no, come on, dude, you got to get your crap together, man. Like, you got to make sure you're doing this or doing that, or hey, we're working out early right now. Come on, let's go. Like, don't. You're reading. What are you reading? Well, you want to play video games? No, come on, let's do this real quick, and then you can do that afterwards. And that's something everyone needs in their life. And it just happens to be my best friend since I was 7 years old, who lives with me now. So it's great to have that rock and that person that will always like make sure that you're on top of your stuff. And Tate is, I met in college. She was a walk-on quarterback. We actually found that we were in the same magazine together in high school, on the same page for quarterbacks. And it was awesome. We ended up saving it. We have a picture of it. It's really something that's kind of like come full circle, because we're best friends now. We ended up actually going on a golf trip 2 weeks ago to Paynes Valley.
Oh, how was that?
It was incredible. Hard.
Yeah.
It's incredibly tough. But it was amazing.
The whole facility's really nice.
Every course out there. We hit Paynes Valley. We had some of the par threes, Buffalo Ridge. I'll tell you what, Buffalo Ridge's their roughs were not a joke. I'll tell you, we ended up. I was like, I know I hit the ball within 15 feet of this, and I cannot find my ball right now. But it was a lot of fun. But he's like, I think one of the only people my age that has multiple kids, and he's about to have his third. And so for me, having that perspective of someone my age and having like the family oriented aspect of life is something that I love listening to, because I'm a single guy who's just, I'm like, all right, nice. I have my friends and my family, and those are the people that I'm working on, and those are the people that I lean on, and all these things. And he's like, oh yeah, I have my friends and family, and I have my wife and my 2 kids and my third that's on the way. That those three, almost 4 people now, that's my world. Yeah, those are the people that I am supporting, and I don't have I support my parents and help them out, but he's like, when you have another life that you have to support, that's something that you're going to have to think about, and you should think about right now, so that when it happens, you're not just like, oh, hey, here we go. Like, this is, now I have to prepare. So being able to talk to him about certain things like that, and the whole dad aspect, and, you know, have him in my ear and in my corner with that, it's really reassuring, and kind of like, it levels me out of nice. Like, I'm right here right now, and I'm on this high of like, oh, I'm just having fun, being able to travel and all this stuff. He's like, all right, get that out of your system. Definitely have as much fun as you can, because when life happens with it, like that trip to Paynes Valley, that was his trip for the year. Now he's back on the grind in Alabama, working and supporting the family. So yeah, those people, those are my guys.
Well, that leads me to a bonus question, which I wasn't expecting to ask. How difficult is it, being an NFL player in the spotlight, to meet women and trust that you're meeting them for the right reasons, versus they know you play in the NFL, they know that you are going to be more lucrative than the average Joe? What are some of the things that you have to, what are your vetting mechanisms? Because to me, I get a chance to interview famous women in here too, and I ask them that same question, like, how do you ever get the feeling that you are actually going to trust that person, that they actually love you for who you are, not what you are?
Yeah. It's I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest with you. No, I think for the most part, it comes down to how they gel with my friends, because I think my friends are very. I mean, if you can be friends with Mac and with Shannon and with Ben, first of all, if you can't be friends with Ben, we're not talking ever again. Like, I can't have you in my life. But if you can have and hold conversations with Shannon, who's a super introvert but super down to earth, Mac, who is one of the more wild of my friends, and who these people are, they're my best friends, and they don't play sports. They are in the business world. They're in music. They're doing these different things that if you're only looking for status and you're looking for me to hang out with my football friends and that's all you want to do, and I can tell that, or I can tell you're kind of just giving these half answers to my friends, then I know that you're in this for the wrong reasons. And I actually ended up looking up stuff because 5 to 6 months is how long it takes for someone to show their true colors. So you can talk to someone, which I've done. I've talked to someone for 7 months, and I noticed a shift after like 6.5 months, and I was like, this isn't who I thought you were going to be with these people and hanging out. And so it's a little bit of a process. I don't jump right into things anymore. I kind of play it cool to see if I can get them to hang out with my friends, or see if I can tell that there's a switch even earlier than those 6 months. But it is tough. I'll be honest. Yeah. It's not the easiest thing to realize, because there are people, which is crazy to me to think about, because I want to believe the best in people, but there are people who are just like, yeah, I'm kind of in this for the status of it.
Yeah, that's to me, I've always wondered what that would be like, because sometimes I see that they end up getting married before they become big time, versus how difficult it might be to get married when you've already become a household name.
Yeah.
So, well, CG, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule to share your story on my podcast. Best of luck to you this year on your health and your season, and let's see if the Bengals can't do something special, because you guys have a lot of good things going. I'm excited for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Cure is focused on providing natural alternatives to aid with current or previous medical conditions. Cure does this by providing therapeutic properties of natural cannabinoid formulations for multiple uses, whether internally or externally. Ask your physical therapist or your primary care physician if cannabinoids are right for you, or check out their website, www.curemich.com. Cure. Cannabis used for research and education.
On the Verge is produced by Chase Akers. If you've enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star rating and write a review. Click subscribe to make sure that you don't miss a single episode.